I'd like to talk to you about what I call the dawn of a new era. And I think we're all living in it. We have been for a while, but I think there's a whole lot more to come, okay? It's called the service revolution. And it's not just me saying this. Dell did a piece of research a few years ago where they surveyed 3,500 senior business folks from all industries around the globe. And what was staggering, and I find this absolutely staggering, that 90% of the execs that were surveyed expect to deliver their product as a service in the next few years. Now, if you listen to that carefully, that's 90% of organizations are transforming already from product delivery to service delivery. The value of the market, 160 billion. These are staggering figures and growing at 24%. So we're living in a revolution. It's happening all around us. And I want to talk through what that looks like and perhaps how we move along that journey. As Richard said, thank you very much. Good to meet you all. If I haven't met anybody, my name is Johann. I have been in the world, thank you, of service transformation and service experience for too many years, 20 plus years and so on. I'd probably call myself a bit of an evangelist and a strategist. And my first 10 years of career were based in operational technology environments, actually, not even IT, but the IT guys came and found me. So I ended up as COO of a small telemetry organization, Mobile Data, previously working for Securicor, Thorn EMI and others. Fell into the world of IT service management. Spent some while working in Vodafone and BP and Unilever running itSMF projects and programs. And then latterly, over the last 10 years or so, headed up service management within Capgemini for the UK. Went and joined ServiceNow for a couple of years where I was working in their Inspire team, which was very much the customer advisory, strategic advisory capability. But I'm now back out in the world of freelance again, currently working with organizations, some in DevOps, but all looking at service transformation and what I call the essence of value and how do they deliver that to their organization. So what I'd like to talk to you about today is what do we mean by everything as a service? It's a term that's growing and we use the X as a service model. Why is it important to us? And how do we get there? If we think it's important, and 90% of the execs of our large organizations do, well, what does that journey actually look like and how do we get there? If you're tweeting, by the way, those are the hashtags, if you don't mind. So let's talk about service. I think this is our world, okay? So we should all understand this very well. But let me just explain, this is not definition language. This is perception language. What do we mean by service? Now, for me, service actually starts at the point where the prospective customer even chooses to engage with our organization, whether they're interested in what we've got to offer, and all the way through to, hopefully, buying what we've got to offer, using it, consuming it, developing it, and having an ongoing relationship with us. Okay, so it's supporting the customer through every part of their journey with us. Service in the context of business and economics transaction in which no physical goods are exchanged. It's intangible, okay? But the consumer, they don't receive anything, but they get the value out of using whatever it is. And we've always talked from an ITIL perspective as well, as service being that delivery of value without having to own the asset and all the risks that come along with it. Okay, so hold that definition if you would. So what do we mean by everything as a service? Well, you and I are already using plenty of services which are being delivered as everything as a service, right? It's not unusual to us anymore. Everything as a service models offers customers product delivery and payment options that allow them the ability to purchase access to the product, but as a service, okay? So they're getting access to whatever it is we're providing, but as a service. It involves delivering the services and applications on demand or on a subscription basis. That usually reduces the cost to the purchaser. A connected business model, a product distribution method where instead of selling products, we sell the value. Remember, the service is the value of it. I'd like to say there are several aspects of everything as a service, but for me it's about that end-to-end integration throughout the service value chain. So not necessarily just your organization or our organization. That enables the achievement of the business outcomes that the customer wants. That's what we're all buying. You know, frankly, forgive me, but I don't really care what technology you're using. What I care about and what I buy is the service that it delivers to me. Yeah? And everybody out there, and everybody outside the IT community, I guarantee, don't care what technology you're implementing, what systems you run, what projects you're running. It doesn't matter. What matters is the service and the value that they get out of consuming that service. So we know about this, right? We've lived through transformation of some of these industries. We've gone from the likes of renting videos, if people remember renting video days and having video recorders, to what I would say is entertainment as a service at the click of a button. From buying records to music as a service. It's all on demand, it's all available to us. In the world of industrial IoT as well, and if you look at the Rolls-Royce scenario, they've been doing this for many years. They've stopped selling engines per se, they actually sell the outcome, the flown miles, if you like. In the world of travel, plenty of airlines, of course, will now also offer you the opportunity to be picked up. So the end-to-end service is for you to be transported from point A to point B. Interesting ones coming through these days, Harry's shave plan. So even, you know, commodity products are being packaged and delivered to you in a subscription model, an as-a-service type model. The as-a-service might actually even go even further. And although I'm not sure I might want a robot to shave me when I decide to shave again, for some folks, it actually will be a life changer for folks who've got disabilities. And I have a younger daughter who's got special needs. And I'm looking forward to seeing what technology will actually offer her by way of helping her live more independently as we go through this era. I'm sure we all know about food as a service, your great Deliveroo or Just Eat apps, and have the food itself delivered to you, even by the robot. Has anybody had the robot deliver food yet? I certainly haven't, not yet. Or the laundry as a service, right? We pick it up, we do whatever, we wash it, we iron it, we clean it, we come back and we deliver it back to you. Here's an interesting one I saw on the tube the other day. I call it accommodation as a service. So it's actually TP, but with John Lewis, and they say rent a room with John Lewis furnishings and Samsung appliances, all looked after by our 24-hour resident team. So we're getting to that area where essentially you can consume the accommodation. You don't have to worry about all the constituent parts that come with it. You certainly don't have to worry about buying it. And in the world of industrial IoT, and we know all of this, the world of farming and agriculture is being transformed before our very eyes. And if you think it's B2C only, it's not. It's B2B stuff. It's internal within organizations. I'm working with a large oil and gas company at the moment. They're looking at their DevOps CI/CD pipelines, and they're actually offering CI/CD pipelines to the rest of the organization to encourage the rest of the organization now to innovate much faster. So they're delivering something as a service. And there's many others. We will be used to banking as a service, pharmacy as a service. I get my medications delivered to me on a monthly basis, and so on. Interestingly, of course, as we move more into the world of robotics, the blurring of boundaries between the human and the machine is growing, and that's going to be an interesting space. But as I say, we are consuming products as a service in our daily lives, whether we know it or not. So the question is, why is it important, and why is it important? Well, if we look at it from the perspective of the consumer, anybody who knows me or has seen anything that I post online will know my mantra is that it's all about service. As I say, I don't really care what technology you use to deliver the service to me. I am only interested in the service, and I will pay you money for the service. So from a consumer perspective, the as-a-service model gives me the opportunity to pay now only for what I use. Usually that means it's a lower initial cash outlay. I don't have to pay for the whole product. It's very convenient. I buy the outcome. Remember, I buy the outcome. It's the end-to-end delivery of what I really want. It's usually very easy to set up these days. It also enables what people are calling the sharing economy, the Uber rides where you can split the cost, the food bills where you can split the cost, and it's usually fast, near instant. Okay, so from our perspective as a consumer, it's really important. It's the way we are choosing to live our lives, and that will just continue in all areas of our lives. For the organization, for the supplier, the provider, potentially it's higher customer lifetime value because there's a greater stickiness to the customer relationship. Once you've bought into paying for something on a monthly basis, let's say, it's easier to stay with that, and let's assume that the client organization is delivering good value to you. Well, there's a level of inertia as well in not moving to next providing organization. But if you're providing that level of care and value, then consumers, as we all are happy to stay. And I certainly have plenty of suppliers that I use on an as a month, as a product, as a pay-per-usage basis that I stay with on a regular basis. Reduced time to market, reduced cost. So the fact that, as I say, if I'm developing CI/CD pipelines that I can offer to business community within my organization, that now helps them innovate new products and services that they can take to their customers faster, cheaper than ever before. Increases the agility of the organization, increases the efficiency of the organization. It's easy to access new technologies. So the blockchains of the world, the virtual realities of the world, and so on, as new technologies come our way, if they can be delivered to us as a service, then it's easier to consume it. It's easier to use it. It democratizes innovation, as I just said, because the business community, usually with platforms and technologies that are no code or low code, can now start to innovate for themselves. And some have suggested that it actually increases returns on their investment significantly than the old model. So the world of as a service is important for everybody. Remember the 90% of executives delivering their product offerings. But the reality is it's complex. Moving from old world, let me suggest, to new world represents quite a significant shift. We've left behind those old worlds where we've simply thrown the product over the wall or even a service contract. Today's customers, which are us, expect vendors to remain continuously involved in helping them achieve better outcomes. It's always about the outcome, and I'm sure you have heard people talk about the outcomes, the business outcomes that we're trying to deliver and enable. We live in a world that is now global and exponential, but we've evolved, and I've certainly evolved in my business life, through a world that was linear. So remember Greg talked earlier on about unlearning things. We have to be prepared to let go of old ways of doing things and old ways of thinking. This is really important. That's why it's a revolution in how we deliver what we deliver to our customers. But what those senior execs are actually saying, what's interesting, is 42%, nearly half of them, are concerned that they won't be able to compete in this new world over the next decade. Now that, again, is staggering. It's a staggering degree of honesty, which is great. But if you think of, the Thomas Cooks of the world and plenty of other organizations that we have already seen over these last few years go to the wall, it is staggering. And some organizations will not be able to change fast enough to keep up with this trend. And we know there are plenty of newcomers into lots of these spaces. Some have tried. Michelin Tires, actually in 2000, perhaps before many others, looked to move from the world of selling commoditized product, which is what a tire is, into selling solutions where they offer greater value to their customer or organization, right? Lifetime value of tires which are replaced on a regular basis, where the customer then doesn't now need to keep buying the tires and take the risk of running on tires which aren't good enough. So they looked to move into this world and move to the world of pay by the mile basis. But in the year 2000, they didn't transform their organization. And it didn't go anywhere. In fact, it started dying on its feet at the time. Now, if you read the use case, and it's out there online that you can read. Now, some of the reasons are simply because they brought out a new as-a-service model alongside the same old product model, the commodity product model, and not least, they hadn't sold the new value proposition to their customers well enough, but they hadn't actually sold it internally either. They still had the original sales force selling products with a new sales force trying to sell services, and it just hadn't gone well. Now, they didn't actually stop there because they recognized that the vision, there was nothing wrong with the vision, and actually that's the way the world was going. Vertical integration in their industry, providing greater levels of service to their customer. They used, I think, one of the big SI cloud platforms in 2013 to bring out truck fleet solutions, end-to-end services that they now sell. And it's been very, very profitable. But they had, in that time, they had made the change in the organization. And they've gone on to deliver many more services. So they sell tire services to the airlines on a per landing billing perspective. Okay, and the preventative maintenance, mining services, optimizing the total cost of ownership just around what was commoditized product. They've moved into the world of delivering services and solutions which are delivering the outcome that the customer requires and generating significant benefit for many of their customers. So the therefore is navigate carefully, because if you don't get it right, this could break the organization. So let's talk about how. And there are many things here, so I've just picked out a few things, okay? It is obviously a business transformation piece of work. It is not something that you enter into lightly. I know of a French energy company that has declared that in the next 10 years or so, it will transform itself to being completely carbon neutral. Now, visions and strategies like that are not small, clearly. So there's a whole piece of business transformation. I argue that, of course, it has to start with the customer journey in mind. You have to understand everything intimately about your customer. and how they wish to consume your product, your application, your service, ideally. But it has to be a multi-phased approach. And you'll break down the people, process, technology, data structures, partners, structures, ecosystems. Everything about the organization will need to change. Again, as Greg said this morning, right? New thinking, new culture, new ways of working. The old ways many times need to be jettisoned. And that's difficult because as human beings, I don't think we're good at change. I know I'm not very good at change, frankly. So we do need to train ourselves. Every time I try and catch myself, even when I have the thought which suggests that was done before, that didn't work, that's never going to work. You know, you hear this. If you're like me, you'll hear some of these messages coming up through your mind, okay? And I challenge myself to just take a step back and go, just let go for a minute. Again, remember Greg said, try and let go and listen and experiment and work with other organizations to collaborate. Because it is about new business models, new ways of working, bringing new products, services to the market in new ways. You have to map and mirror the customer journey. It's an obvious statement, but many organizations still struggle with that. They struggle with linking what I might call front office to mid-office to back office. And that is crucial. Many organizations run service improvement initiatives, but customers often ask me why they are not successful. Well, it's simply because they have myriad of service initiatives that are not joined up. They just don't join up to a common coherent strategy. So there are plenty of initiatives in the world of customer relationship management and CRM and CXP and all of that good stuff. There are plenty probably in other parts of the organization around service and service management and everything else, but they're not linked. So process improvement has to follow the customer journey. You have to identify, therefore, the capability gaps and put transformation programs in place. But this, for me, is crucial. You must employ what I call the controlling mind. It is the platform of all platforms that can orchestrate the end-to-end process that is mirrored and mapped to your customer journey throughout your organization. And I would also advocate that you need a senior business leader to lead this. And I'll come on to why some of that's necessary. Let me just look at a few of those. We have to move from what we've previously employed as a traditional linear business model to one which is much more customer-centric. It's much more iterative. It's much more around the usage that the customer has on a real-time basis, feeding that back into the organization, getting the organization to change. Again, the old world has to change. This is about flexible consumption on behalf of the customer, and it touches all parts of the organization quickly. IDC call it an ecosystem-enabled business model. And some examples might be, you know, we live in, we will start to experience autonomous vehicles, right? So the auto passenger economy is clearly coming down the track. Microgrid, where organizations, hospitals, whatever it might be, now will generate some of their own electricity, some of their own energy, but actually pump that back into the grid system. So the microgrid economy, the real-time economy that we all live in and know well, and many of us have been using banking for a long time. We've currently got MiFID II and PSD opening up the whole world of banking for us. So we've got new business models coming through. The end-to-end process improvements that I talked about, if you look at this, this is Deloitte's analysis, all the way from lead through opportunity down through consuming it to issue resolution. It all needs to be tracked and mapped and managed. It needs to be the joined up service value chain across the organization and outside. It needs to join what I've called historically front office, mid office, back office, and other partners. But it needs to be done in an automated and insightful and action-orientated manner, which is why I talk about a platform of platforms. Many organizations will have front-end platforms, back-end platforms, ERP, CRMs, and so on. But we need a controlling mind that orchestrates all of it. And I talked about this last year. One that can run in the background, once you set it up, can run automatically, is a broker of data, and just orchestrates the whole end-to-end customer journey. This is from a finance perspective. You know, corporates must face the facts. Manual legacy systems that are paper-driven are not effective to meet requirements. Outdated IT systems will not be able to handle the onboarding and reporting requirements and the data that we need to drill down into organizations. So the old ways of delivering products and systems and IT won't work in this faster, newer world of as a service. It is about joining up that organization. I talked previously, we've all got service management systems and platforms, right? But the service management wrappers around each silo in an organization, and then the joining up of those silos using, let me suggest, an enterprise service platform is a prime opportunity to join up the organization, such that the customer's perspective, if you look down the bottom, which is always across organization, can now be seamlessly and smoothly mapped and automated. No more silos between functions and departments for the customer to fall through. Yeah? IDC call it they're delivering intelligent outcomes based on end-to-end customer service. Folks, this is our world, okay? We have a head start in this. So our language and the opportunity that we have is immense because we understand this. It's about empowering, automating, predicting. So why might I suggest the rise of the chief service officer? It's all about focus. It is all about service. Everybody has lots of different service focus. Yeah, the COO is always balancing up resource utilization against customer service and everything else. We need a business leader who's got the vision and the ability to evangelize, but also speak truth. Speak truth to the exec leadership team, who straddles across various parts of a business, the operations side, the product side, and others. As I say, evangelizes the language of service, because without talking about service in this way, the culture can't change. I did a piece of work for a global head of service management for a large organization last year. And it was very much about the language that he used and using that language to start to change the culture. So no more talking about IT products and projects and systems and solutions, please. I only want to hear about the services, okay, because that's what it's about. And this person in this role starts to become a broker because, again, let's assume that we're moving to a day when, even from an IT perspective, IT just becomes a utility. Just like everything else is becoming a utility. So the importance is being able to broker new services that I might see outside into the organization, being able to enable the organization to integrate that into my services and deliver that to you as my consumer. Now, the telco industry has been doing this for years and been doing it very well. They deliver to us on these little devices amazing services through collaboration with other service providers. They become the service broker. And this role bridges the front and the back office. So I think it's time that chief execs start to look seriously at the role of a chief officer. You know, the benefits of moving to as a service is obvious. We've talked about them plenty. From an increasing revenue perspective through an outstanding productivity, agility, reducing risk, that's another one that we've not yet talked about. But in summary, let me summarize briefly. What we mean by everything as a service, we actually understand that because we are consuming many services already on a flexible consumption-based model. Okay? It's being delivered to us now as a service. It is all about service, but at speed. It's not about manual touches in a service management process. Please understand that, okay? You've got to force your organizations to automate customer journeys and customer processes. Why is it important? The reality is that's how we are choosing to consume many more services, and even in the world of B2B, that's how the organizations are choosing to buy in services. 90% of organizations are doing this, okay? So this is very, very real. But it's a tricky one. There is light, I think there's light at the end of the tunnel, but you have to navigate it carefully. So, if I might, by way of key takeaways, I'd ask you to consider carefully this world. It is a new paradigm. It is a new set of thinking that is needed. These are new ways of working that we, because we understand the world of service, we are fostering and being called to bring into our organizations. Okay, you guys should be leading lights in your organization around the transformation to an everything as a service model. It is all about the end-to-end journey that the customer goes through, the end-to-end service, but you must therefore have, in my view, happy to be challenged on it, but in my view, the best way of doing that is to have a controlling perspective that understands and orchestrates at any moment of any time, any process, is orchestrating that process and that journey. And having a chief service officer gives you focus, it gives you vision, it gives you gravitas, it gives you influence in organizations, and it gives you end-to-end accountability. So 3 things just to bear in mind as you leave. And finally, if I may, let me leave you with another little case study, which you can see this one online. I hadn't come across it before. A company called Lemonade.com. I would call it claims as a service. Just go through this with me. They claim a couple of world records here. One of their customers, his coat was stolen on a sub-zero Saturday night in downtown New York. He hoped it might turn up, but 6 freezing days later, Brandon despaired of finding it and did something no one has ever done before. He took out his iPhone 7 and set a new world record. It was December the 23rd, so you can imagine everything's winding down, at 5:43 when he entered his details of this wonderful coat that he'd bought into his Lemonade app. Love the name. It had cost $979 and it was bought in New York, Fifth Avenue. Sending a tweet would have required more taps. He gets out his iPhone 7, he speaks into the camera and describes what happened. That takes just over a minute, and at 5:49 and 7 seconds, he hits the submit button. The seconds matter. The process up to that point had taken only a few minutes and 0 paperwork, which is unheard of, isn't it, in the world of insurance. But what happened next in the next 3 seconds, they believe, is a new world record. His claim was paid within 3 seconds. Think it through. Your IT guys, your service guys, think it through by way of all the integrations, the process points that algorithm has now gone through to deliver to him in 3 seconds. Between 4907 and 4910, that AI Jim algorithm and bot reviewed his claim, cross-referenced it against his policy, ran 18 anti-fraud algorithms on it, approved it, sent the wiring instructions to the bank to transfer the money, and actually transformed it and informed him of the good news. That's a wow to me. Now that's what I mean by moving to an as-a-service model. Okay? And that's the type of example that I think we will see more of in the coming days, weeks and months. Folks, that's the world we're living in and moving to, which is why I say we are living at the dawn of a new era. It absolutely is service revolution. We should be at the heart of it because we understand service. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to carry on the dialogue with me, please do come and join me at servicerevolution.io or text that to that number and you can join up.